Welcome to Collecting Consciousness, where we aim to capture the ever-expanding and evolving conscious creations that originate from the minds of fellow podcasters, strangers, dear friends, and loved ones.
In this podcast, we will expand on our inner wisdom and a coming home to self. From our conscious minds to yours, we welcome you to the Collecting Consciousness.
Today we are back on another episode of Collecting Consciousness with Bethany and Courtney, and we are here to do one of the things that we love to do most is listen to a podcast, digest it, and then chat about it with each other. So that's something that organically happened in our relationship, and I'd always be sending, or Courtney would be sending something, and I'd be like, listen, and then we have so many epiphanies.
4 hours in my kitchen.
Yes, and like so many epiphanies about, what other people are sharing, which is so beautiful. And so we are going to offer
integrated. Yeah, and and it shows how to integrate it into your own lives, to take those wisdoms of those nuggets of wisdom and how you can integrate it into your own existence. If it has a resonance with you, you're meant to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So today we're going to do that with a podcast. It was the Dream Bigger podcast with Brioni, and she was interviewing Peter Crone, who we have chatted about before on this podcast. I think we've done one other review with him.
Yeah, we have.
We love him. We're obsessed. I love
Peter. Yeah, I love him. He's funny. He's quick. He's got that British humor. He's cool. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, he really is. He's great. He's referred to as the mind architect for the ways that he has just totally flipped the script on what goes through our minds and how we perceive life. And yeah, he's just got a really
the self-limiting belief that keep people in the prisons. He likes to call them prisons.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming out with a book next year, which I'm 100% getting.
Cool.
Yeah. It's going to be it's going to talk about the 10 prison. He's got 10 prisons that people keep themselves in. So he said 2 of them. One was I'm not good enough, and then I forget the other one that he was talking about on the podcast. But it was I'm not good enough. So I'm sure many of our viewers have had times where they felt not good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So they, in this podcast, do you know where you want to start or what you highlighted?
I'm kind of, my notes are kind of all over the place. So let's just, what I started with was the subconscious constraints. So again, Peter Crone, that's what he's all about. He's all about getting into our minds to see because we're 95% living in the subconscious. So obviously we are going to stay in patterns, in loops, until you get your conscious mind aware of the subconscious. So, there's, with the subconscious constraints, there's suffering, there's ruminations, there's things that keep you up at night. What is the mind telling you? It's a prison, and he is here to get you to break free. So one thing that they talked about is triggers. So triggers are a beautiful way to see the subconscious, to then get curious, lean in, and see where there's growth. Anytime there's a trigger, this is an opportunity for growth. My healer said, she's when her family, when her kids, and when her and her husband get triggered, they clap. They get really excited. They're okay, let's lean into it, because it's a safe space. You have to have those safe people to be able to work through. Not everybody, unfortunately, not everybody is that safe space. So lean in on your tribe that creates safety. But I just want to talk about what a trigger is.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. A trigger is when you are not in bliss, when you are not calm, when your heart rate is beating, when your palms are fucking sweaty as fuck, when something causes a huge reaction, when something stirs something up with you, when maybe, you're with somebody and something happens and it causes you to emotionally lash out. You go from 0 to 60.
Yep.
I can keep going with that.
I think that's a beautiful explanation.
Okay. Cool.
What a trigger looks like, in life. And then to hit the pause button in that moment takes a lot of self-discipline.
Yes.
And it does take a level of, am I safe in this
awareness.
situation? And awareness. Yeah. to look at like, okay, so now why was I triggered? So what is
Yeah.
the belief behind that reaction? So like,
Hmm.
what story is running for me about that particular thing?
And
But
the things with triggers too, it's like they say, it's like oftentimes, the situation that happens, it's actually a past experience. It's a past bit of anger that you felt, like where you didn't speak up, where you didn't feel good enough. Like, when they often say, it's never about the dishes.
mm-hmm.
It's something deeper. So like you said,
Yeah.
getting curious and leaning in to see that part of yourself. But if you do, it's an opportunity for you to heal that story, that belief that's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
holding you in a prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and so
Ooh.
yeah, what do you got? Mm-hmm.
Okay, so like they, let's just talk about how to overcome. So we were just kind of talking about how to overcome a trigger, but let's lean into it. So it's like, first you have to like really be aware that, hey, it's a trigger, because sometimes you don't even realize that you're triggered, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like an unawareness. So the more you get self-reflective, the more you get in your mind, the more you get aware of it, that's how you can lean in and really expand on it. So be aware, look at where that response started, so that's getting curious, and then take responsibility for your emotion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's how to overcome. And Peter Crone talked about, like, people often think, oh, they just want to be happy, but he finds that's like a fleeting emotion. He likes to reframe it. He says, you want to be in harmony, you want to be in peace. So, because things do come and go, but it's like keeping yourself harmonious. So, oh, if something is triggering you or something's like not what you want, okay, just let that kind of feel it in, learn it, listen to it, but it's going to come and go. So try and keep yourself in a harmonious state.
And I would say that like leans back into the acceptance of he said, the true nature of life. Like, just if
Yeah.
you accept that
Yes.
the true nature of life is not perfect, it's not always
Yeah.
blissful, it's not always happy, it's not always,
Yes.
the positive emotions, like you have to accept the true nature of all that is life. And once you
Mhm.
do that, then you are able to flow with it with more ease and not
Yeah.
feel fearful of, so say you're always trying to chase that bliss state or that happiness state in a situation or situations or life, like that's not reality. You're going to
No,
have
the
ups and
ebbs
downs,
and
you're going to
flows,
have downs, you're going to have things that you
seasons.
feel different ways and people that come at you different ways. And so it's like, yeah, just that true acceptance allows us to, with the nature of life, he says it really allows us to trust in our own faculties to figure out whatever comes our way. So like trust, to have this deep trust that we can figure out whatever life throws at us. Like we
Mhm.
can accept it, we can figure it out, and we can be, in harmony with it, find harmony with it.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
like
so
that.
that
I
was,
like that.
acceptance is one of the things I wrote down, or accepting is one of the big things that he had
And
talked
that,
about.
yeah, and I liked when he did chat about that, like, that life, it isn't perfect, and it's not always in bliss, it's not always in that harmony. So it's being okay with when it's not, will, I think, allow you to move through things quicker,
Mhm.
because then you're not like attaching, you're not holding on, you're not trying to grasp at all the things, you're just like, oh, letting things come, like, keeping your palms open and letting things come in, and when they're meant to go, they'll go again.
Yeah. And this is something tying into our last, or what we were chatting about right before this. Uh, well, actually, I have one thing to say about that, actually. So,
Okay.
really getting comfortable in the suffering was something he talked about. So, like, really getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, I guess is how I would put
Yeah.
that, rather than suffering. Really getting comfortable in the uncomfortable rather than trying to be right, because he said being right is the poor man's version of self-worth. So just
Mm-hmm.
like being really comfortable in the messy, in the ugly, in the not so comfortable, rather than being right, allows you to be free. So there's like
Right.
one prison that we might put ourselves in is like trying to like fix the suffering or not being comfortable with like the uncomfortable. And that manipulation is um well, that is a manipulation of that situation, of a relationship, of whatever is going on there, whatever emotion needs to be expressed. Like you are trying to manipulate the situation, but it's actually not serving your higher self, serving your like better version of yourself. It's really actually just serving your ego, is what he said. It's
Well,
just
yeah,
giving
that's
your
it. Yeah.
ego proof that like you're right and this is
Yeah.
wrong and that is not right and this is right and this is how I would do it. So it's all ego
Yeah.
based, which really just
Right. Ties it
keeps your
in.
true self-worth really dimmed because your true
Yeah.
self-worth has nothing to do with your ego, you know?
Yeah. Well,
So,
and that's what they were saying about that ego. It was like the ego is like the uncertainty. We're always trying to we're trying to be certain, we're trying to be right, we're trying to figure it out, and it is being okay with that suffering. So that is like why the ego keeps coming back, and it's learning to have that delicate dance with that ego. It's like, oh, okay, here, oh, I see you're trying to be protective or whatever, but let's get uncertain about what's coming in,
mhm.
because the more certain you are, the limiting you can be, because the possibilities can be endless, and you can surprise yourself when you just let things come to you rather than letting that ego take the full reins all the time,
Mhm.
and try to give you that certainty. No, the beauty is in the uncertain.
He said something really beautiful too about the ego. The ego wants to be held, not healed. So
Oh,
like
I'm gonna write that down.
it doesn't
The
really want to be
ego.
fixed. Like it doesn't need to be like fixed or even made to be right or wrong or to run the show. It just needs to be held with love. Like, okay, I see you. You just came up. I love you. Thank you for, having that perspective. But,
Let's try
we're just
something.
gonna hold you and we're gonna accept what is because that is more
Yeah.
validating than like trying to manipulate it and fix it and make it what you want it to be, ego, to make you
Yeah, well
feel better.
said.
So like that was a really beautiful point that he made about self-worth. Is that lies really pretty heavily in the ego. And when we don't hold the ego and we try to like heal the situation or, it
Hmm.
just invalidates us even more.
Yeah.
And that's,
It's go ahead.
no, go, you're good.
Yep, yeah. It sounds it's like that can come into like allowing all the self, sometimes the inner child takes the wheel, sometimes the higher self takes the wheel, sometimes the ego takes the wheel. It's like I think it's kind of really allowing all parts of you to be witnessed,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but not holding constraints, not holding you back, just being like you said, oh, hey, I see you. Thank you for that. But let us try this way because I feel something. I feel some expansive butterflies happening right now. But thank you. I see
Mm-hmm.
you. I thank you. I thank you. Oh, that was pretty. I like that.
And even just a deep allowing of what is, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, ego, cool. I see that you don't feel comfortable with this and you want to change it to be this because that would make you feel comfortable, but this is what it is. So we just got to sit here and love and we just got to allow it to be what it is.
Let be.
Let it be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the Beatles said.
I was gonna, yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I like that. They did talk about well, there's like two. So they talked about the victim mentality, and I liked that. I liked when they talked about that. I thought it was an interesting. I thought it was an interesting point of view Peter Crone had, where it's like a narrative. He says sometimes he feels like it's karma. So sometimes people do stay in that victim mentality, and it keeps those beliefs going. It keeps them not able to grow and shift. And he said sometimes he thinks it's a younger soul not able to look at the pain. So it's in the karmic realm of things, the life, it's a younger soul in this lifetime. If this person is constantly living in victim mentality,
Mm.
I thought that was a cool point. I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Because when you've lived many lifetimes, you get the courage to be able to push past those things that scare you. But when you're a younger soul, well, you've still got to learn these lessons. So I like that. And then he had another mentality with the victimhood. He said, so like when you're in your mid 20s, mid 40s, you start getting self-reflective, you start questioning, you start facing challenges. So you have drive and determination to break free, like to break free from these constraints that you're holding yourself back. So getting to those ages, you start to say, oh, hey, I'm actually recreating a pattern. Oh, this is a pattern. I'm noticing I'm stepping in from this relationship. Oh, and guess what? It's happening again. So maybe I need to step out and see there's some sort of reflection I need. There's some sort of mirror that I'm not seeing right now.
Just basically, you need that amount of time to start to make those things more apparent is like the idea. Yeah, you actually need the timeline. If you're not going to be a quick learner, like you just need the timeline on the planet, you know, to actually make those things apparent. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And like, well, you think about it, too, like for him, his journey started with a relationship that really set him into a self-worth of like always curious what she was doing, who she had been in a relationship, keeping him up at night. And that was 20 years ago. Yeah. So like, and now he is at this mind frame where he is like helping some like high. So he's in like this pretty much like high stakes world of like celebrities or like sports people. Like I know he works with like athletes and stuff. Yeah. And then, so it's like, he's gotten to that point where he's learned many lessons, where he's been open, where he's been receptive, where he's wanted to be working, breaking those constraints. And it takes time. So wherever you are in your journey, maybe today is the day that you are seeing things differently. Maybe it's been 7 years. Maybe it's been 2 years. It's just like being open that, hey, you're there and you're on the journey to get reflective.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's what it's about. Yeah. To learn and grow. And to be responsible for what is going on inside your mind, really. Yeah. Which is it's a hard task.
Well, talking about the mind and how it can be a hard task, they talked about the worst case scenarios that our mind is like, our mind can often revert to worst case scenarios and creating those crazy scenarios that it's like, oh, like that are gonna be hard for you to shift and move. I liked what he said. He said what? So he went, because he was like saying how he helps a lot of people to hear their story and blah blah blah. And he was like, not to sound rude, but he's like, I don't care about who you are. He's like, I mean, he does, but it's like he cares about seeing what sort of suffering your mind is telling you, what sort of block, what sort of constraint. He's here to be that ninja to say, oh, let's open up here, let's move here. And he said, but what he said was, he goes, let them, when they're coming to you with that worst case scenario, he said, come in with a feminine energy. It's okay to feel that way. Validate their feelings. But then let a masculine energy come through and be like, it's not, and trying to help them see that this is a belief, this is a constraint that you're holding, and then help them work through it. So soften by allowing people to feel their feelings, but also being a friend, being a supportive person where you're like, do you think maybe like get curious with them and try and help them see the difference of like, this is a story you're telling yourself.
Right. That's beautiful. I forgot that.
Yeah.
That. Yeah.
I really love that. I thought that was a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Because dude, most times people want to be fucking heard.
Right. Exactly. Or just validated.
Validated.
Yeah. Just for a second. Like, okay, I feel you. It's okay to feel that way. But this is where you're holding yourself back. Or this is maybe why you feel this way, or is this a story that you're telling yourself about this situation that's causing you to feel this way? Offering that insight.
That loving awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like what Kasha says from the Temple podcast, and a gal we interviewed not too long ago she likes to just say, I lovingly, and then have a challenging perspective. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it comes back to like the receptiveness of like how people are in receiving that type of stuff. But when you do come in with saying like lovingly, or hey, I say this with love, it can make a person say, like, it can help a person not have their backs up against the wall, because it can come back to like that self-worth bit. Where are they at in their journey of how they feel about themselves?
Yeah, and I this is another good visual that he gave, is that, treat yourself as if that part of you that's feeling triggered or upset or angry or whatever, treat that part of you as if it was a little girl or boy, like a little child, like a young,
or your best friend.
You were that. Yeah. Some people though don't even have that like level of compassion, but when you talk to a boy or a little girl, like,
totally. You're like, hey,
can't help but be like, oh, it's okay, sweetie.
So
like,
soft.
And so
soft.
That was a really beautiful visual, just to treat that part of you as you would treat a little boy or a little girl, that you wanted to tell them like, hey, don't you think we should maybe like do it this way? Or, you just be softer. You would say it's softer. You would say it kinder. So that was a really cool visual
I like that.
to think about.
Yeah.
Treating it that way. But it was a quick little ditty of a podcast, really. And it was like I felt like a really digestible one.
Yeah.
Sometimes his information is like,
his words, he comes in, he's got big words. I love it. He's a smart man. He's so smart. Yeah, exactly. Very profound. He always has very profound thoughts. And like, even in that episode, she was like, that's, he's like, yeah, it's profound. It is. Yeah, there's a couple other things that I thought were really good things that he said. To be more disciplined, that's a way to help the mind, is to be more disciplined. Because, he said, like, you could say, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow. But then you're actually telling your mind, it's okay to it's okay to self-abandon yourself. It's okay to let yourself down. It's okay to actually not do the things you said you were going to do. Mm-hmm. He said, discipline is to honor the words you use, and the discipline to break free. And then what he says is abracadabra. So abracadabra is a Hebrew word, and it says, as I speak, so I create. So he said, your words are magic. Black magic, white magic. You continue to tell yourself you can't do something, you will not do that thing. So that's where he says, like, this kind of comes into integrity, like, to be disciplined with yourself, to have that self-will, practice your self-will every day, practice consistency, practice your discipline, because to realize when we don't have it, like, will help you shift into the things that you want by being disciplined.
Yeah, I believe big time in the things that we tell ourselves. Like, even on the simplest level of like, oh, I'm getting old. Isn't it awful to be in your 40s or whatever people say about, wait until you get older. This is what you got to look forward to. And I'm just like, no, I don't know. I reject it. I don't really reject that. That's a limiting belief. And I really am not going to buy that. Like, I want to feel really good when I get older. I don't want to be like feeling like crap. Like, why would I look forward to that? Like, so it's so interesting. But people,
the mind is fucking powerful.
And people will say that because they've heard it. That's the thing. Like, be careful of what you're regurgitating. Be careful what you're taking in. Yes. And be owner of your beliefs, like the things that you're choosing to invest in, like you really should take ownership in that, and like don't just take everything in as yours. So I'm a big believer in
reject things left, right, and center. And it's like, I think too, that can, like, the self-righteousness, that the ego, sometimes you want to force those, you want to say the difference. But sometimes, like, you don't have to tell that person. You just know in your mind that you can reject it. You don't have to say it out loud to them, because letting them live their journey in a sense. That's just a little side tangent.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that that's like easy to do in life or hard?
For me, that's something I'm definitely learning, because again, when you do help a lot of people, like, that's my job. I love to help.
Yeah.
I do have to refrain myself and be like, and sometimes, so that helper fixer, that I have to be like, no, they have to come to me. So some days I do it well, some days, maybe your closer people in your immediate inner circle. So it's like, I have a friend that I'm like, oh, sorry, didn't mean to give you unsolicited advice. She's like, no, I welcome, when you do have those people that can love you, that they know that you just like do have solutions. They like seeing those things. They don't have to accept them. You don't have to accept what I tell you, but they don't always shut me down. But yeah, sometimes it's harder for me. Sometimes sometimes it's easy. And I think that this is definitely a lesson for me in my lifetime, to really allow people to come to me, even when I do have a space and heart that wants to be there for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that depends on the day, depends on the day.
And it depends on the person.
Depends on the person. Yeah. Those high stake relationships.
Yeah.
It comes back to suffering for me. It's like when I see a person, let's just say they're repeating the same thing over and over and over to me, but they don't, they just want to be heard. That's when that's when I have to be strong in my boundaries and be like, you know what? Lovingly, like, if you ever want to have solutions, I have some thoughts. I have some reflections if you ever want to hear them, but I'm going to have to say, like, lovingly, this is not a conversation I want to have. When it's repeated, because there's a difference between, holding space for a person, and then when a person is just emotionally dumping, these are layered topics that you can go down, but it's like, you have to be strong in yourself too, and not allow people just to, because they know that you're a safe space, to just come and just vent and vent and vent and vent. That's when you're like, do you want me to hold space, or do you want me to give you solutions? If they just want you to hold space, then you have to decide in yourself, do I have the emotional capacity to listen to this? Maybe you don't, or maybe you can talk a little bit and then you shut down the conversation. It all comes back to boundaries.
Right. Yeah, I'll try to
life's many lessons,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There was also another thing that I like too. It's like, he talked about like a resonance within your body. So if you believe, let's just say you're coming from a mind of scarcity mindset, and or let's say you're coming from a rejection mindset, and you'd never felt in your lifetime, like when you grew up, you never felt accepted. So let's just say I put on a workshop and nobody came to my workshop. That is going to validate my rejection belief. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to hear the wisdom that I have. Why? And then I'm like feeding that resonance. I'm feeding that vibration. So it's going to show up in my perspective, in my realm. But when you can sit and be like, maybe I didn't promote. When you can distinguish between fact and fiction, it's like you maybe I didn't promote this workshop well. Maybe this workshop the time frame didn't work for people. There's so many different things, but because I am stuck in this resonance of rejection, I'm taking it very personal and being like, woe is me, I'm not good enough. So he's like, so if you really want to get deep within yourself, clear space and look at the restraints, the constraints from your childhood, and then declare with your own voice to create what you want, create your resonance. So if you don't want to live in a rejection resonance anymore, start creating the new words, start creating the new beliefs. So you have to give yourself loving awareness and look at those hard parts of yourself. But change happens within the body, and you pay attention to your vibration, to your frequency, to your resonance. And that's where you can make those shifts. That's like a true manifestation in his opinion.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
He said, your life is an extension. It will meet you at the frequency. So he says, if you want something, feel it within the body, and the external will start to shift. Not saying it's going to change tomorrow, but the more you work at your subconscious, the more you work at yourself, your external will start to shift. Your life will start to shift. Like, we are in our bodies 24/7. The resonance is in our bodies 24/7. So create who must I be to get what I want, is what he said.
Yeah. And like, because if you feel like you're not deserving for whatever reason, then like, and that's still lingering in many different ways inside of you, then like, you won't be deserving of anything, of whatever you feel. Yeah.
You're going to keep playing that perspective. You're going to keep seeing those things that lead you to, it comes back to hold on. I just want to see the word I wrote. It comes back to, dun, dun, dun. Self-sabotage, because it's like that self-righteousness. It keeps that ego, keeping that scarcity, keeping that ego certain. Yeah, see, I told you. See, so it's like a self-abandonment. It's a self-sabotage.
Yeah.
But like you said, it was a short podcast. Yeah, it was digestible. It was, go ahead.
One thing I want to end on, just like a little love note, because they talked about relationships, and I love what he said, because I feel like this is what I've been trying to describe to like the people that I know that are single, that have met people in the last couple of years. They've like, and they maybe are really into them, and they just don't want to say the love word, like I love you, or like, you know what I mean? And I loved that he said, like, love who you're with, because, it was like the love of your life, like that whole notion.
Right.
The love of my life. Like, I've met the love of my life. And he was like, every person that you're with is the love of your life, because they're serving that purpose in your life in that time and place. Like, so that is the love of your life. If you love your life and love who you are, and understand that wherever you're at in that time and place is like, if you could be the most lovable version of yourself, like that love is matching that frequency. So like that is the love of your life in that moment, or in that time. And I just was like, man, that's what I'm just trying to say. Like, love is not something that's meant to be like caged and only let out. And you see the fairy tales and you're like, I'm supposed to meet the love of my life, and it's love at first sight. And I just love that he just totally took that and threw it out the window. And he was like, you could have 15 loves of your life, because if you're loving your life in that moment and you meet that person, then that is the love of your life in that moment. And they might not be the love of your life in 15 years, because you don't love that life anymore, and you're in a different resonance and you love this new life, and that is no longer the person that fits that life, So it's like, it was really a beautiful way to be like, wow, it's like love is so fluid. It really is just so fluid. And it doesn't have to be this like square box or thing that we check.
Constrained. He wants you to be.
Yeah. Like the only thing that we give to this one person or that person, like it's just fluid thing.
Well, it's like I said to you, I said, you and Jonah always give such loving, embracing hugs. And do you remember what I said to you? I said to like hug me like that, because like I'm open.
Me and Jonah hug each other. Like,
And I just mentioned that I'm like, I'm here for it too. I think
give the love.
When I love giving hugs to people. Like I just gave a hug to somebody last week, and me and her just like melted into each other's arms and we just held each other. And then my other friend was like, "Hey, I'm jealous." But it was just like, but I felt the feeling that like hugging is a self-soothing, it is a co-regulation, but it's a love. It's just like sitting with a person. Doesn't have to be, it can be a friend, it can be a lover, it can be a family member, like it can be like no constraint. It's just love. It's just love. I like that. I like that mentality.
Yeah.
And just to before to end on it, there was something, because sometimes we can want to, it's kind of getting thrown in, but there was a question that somebody asked and they were like, how can I forgive my parents? And I think a lot of people struggle with this in a lifetime. And I think it's just like a nice little nugget. He was like, she said, how can I forgive my parents? And then he kind of leaned into it. He said, get curious. He said, like, by you trying to be able to forgive them, it's like, you're telling them they're good, they're bad. He said, your parents had the awareness at that time and place that what they could give you was what they had.
Yeah.
So it's like, honoring, not, but it does, even if that journey, they were not nice and they hit or abused and shit like that, like that's still not okay. But they had the awareness. If they had known better, they would have done better.
Yeah.
And it can come into a deeper bit of where it's like we chose these people to, do these things in these lifetimes so that we can grow. So it comes back to like ownership and how can you just like be more loving and just know that we all do things at the awareness that we have. So yeah, did you want to jump in?
Would you say like less forgiveness, because forgiveness still has a sense of control with the ego of making someone right or wrong, but like more acceptance, because that acceptance is more supportive of our self-worth.
Definitely.
Versus our self-confidence or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I forgave them, I am, that could come off.
I accept that they had the awareness and the tools at that level and capacity.
I accept them for where they were. I accept the true nature of life for what it was, like, and for what it brought me. Like I accept that, that does feel more, it feels less in the ego. It feels more in the heart, like an acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. It was a good one. It was really good. You guys should all go listen to it because Peter Crone.
Go follow Peter Crone.
Yes, and go follow him. Yeah, every nugget is a good one.
Profound. He's a profound dude, and he's a funny dude. He'll toss in some little British humor that always makes me chuckle.
I know he is. He's a silly bloke.
Yeah.
He's a silly bloke.
Cool.
Alrighty, well, we will see you next time on Collecting Consciousness. If you love this and you resonate with it, or you want to go check out any of our other episodes, please do. And rate, subscribe, share, like, do all the things. Follow us on Instagram. And we appreciate it. Until next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Collecting Consciousness.
We're so grateful that you've been on this journey with us so far.
And we look forward to seeing where we are going to expand, curate, and collect.
So if you haven't already liked, subscribed, or shared our content, and you feel called to do so, we would so deeply appreciate it. From our souls to your soul, and our hearts to your minds. We are collecting consciousness.